Hey guys, it's Bedlam. So in my past couple videos, I've been doing a lot of positive coverage of Sam, saying things like how, oh, he's such a versatile brawler and can counter his counters and is a great tank option, but I think I might have overdone it and given him a little too much positive coverage because in this meta, Sam is honestly complete buns for four main reasons: Gale, Chester, Surge, and Mo. These four brawlers are pretty unanimously the best brawlers in the game right now, and what do you know, they're all fantastic tank counters, which means that Sam, a tank, gets completely ripped apart by them, not to mention that his role gets overshadowed right now by Daryl, who can play as both a tank and an assassin, and is also one of the best brawlers in the game right now. But fingers crossed, these 5 brawlers will hopefully receive big nerfs in the upcoming update, and so long as no other tank counters get buffed to take their place, Sam might rise in viability and become playable again soon, maybe, hopefully. So in this video, we're going to go over Sam's kit and general playstyle, his strengths and weaknesses, and we'll play a couple games in Masters Ranked to showcase some of what Sam can do, even if it means I do have to face off against some pretty hard Sam counters to do it. So let's get right into it. To start off, what kind of a brawler is Sam anyways? Well, Sam is classified as an assassin, but a lot of the time he plays more like a tank, where his utility and pressure comes from pushing in and trading HP for map control, and he doesn't really have any true mobility tools in his kit to dive on people like a real assassin can. But like a lot of assassins, his playstyle usually involves going in on suicide missions to trade out his life for enemy kills or objectives, so to get in the mindset of playing the Sam, you kind of have to get in the mindset of accepting that your risky plays might result in you trolling the game. What ultimately separates a good Sam player from a bad one though is how thoughtfully they can throw the game to create those positive value trades for their life. Truly the most versatile brawler, okay? He's not only a tank and an assassin, but a thrower of games too. So if you like the sound of throwing games, how do you play the Sam? Well, Sam has this 1-2 punch attack that baseline kind of comes out in a weird diagonal shape, kind of like a V shape, that at first feels more annoying than helpful, but honestly it does provide a little more AoE to his attacks and can come in clutch sometimes, but if someone is standing just at the tip of his range in the middle, the punches won't hit, so it actually is just secretly dogshit after all, and I hope when Supercell does their rounds of reworking Doug's and Pam's basic attacks, they have it in their heart to widen Sam's projectiles a little so they at least have overlap at the range it shows on Sam's aiming reticle. That being said though, Sam's punches do a pretty hefty amount of damage. I mean, 1600 doesn't feel like a lot until you realize that if both punches hit, that's 3200 damage, which is almost as much damage as a Piper max range hit. His unload speed and reload speed is honestly slow though, which means that if he's facing off against another tank or a tank counter, just spamming shots will guarantee he loses the 1v1 every time. So that's it then, right? Sam is F tier, never touch him, certified and stamped Bedlam approved message? Well, not necessarily, because everything changes when he throws out his super, which spits out your grandma's dentures, piercing enemies for 2800 damage, and giving him a big boost of movement speed for 2.5 seconds. Just with this, that means that if you throw out one ammo and then super immediately as the second punch comes out, you're dealing 6000 damage, which is a pretty good amount and can shred most throwers and snipers. The super has a range comparable to Griff's main attack and can be picked back up to recharge Sam's super, so a big part of Sam's kit is learning where to throw Sam's super so you can easily pick it up and maintain your movement speed boost for most of the game. You won't be as fast as a max super, but you'll still outspeed every other brawler that doesn't have a movement speed buff active. While your gloves are on the ground, Sam's basic attack changes to these baby punches that deal half damage and also have a shorter length and width than Sam's attacks with the gloves on. But just like in real life, it's not the size and shape that matters, but it's how you use it. These baby punches have a shorter unload speed and faster reload, so while they're not the most positive descriptions of a man's performance in bed, this does have the added benefit of functionally making his super also increase your reload speed upon use, kinda like a built-in Daryl reload star power. Not only that, but since the attack itself comes out so fast, you can use it in a pinch to up your burst damage even more, dealing up to 8400 damage within 1 second, which will take out an additional 30 brawlers in the game with just one combo. This sneaky reload speed buff built into his kit also makes him low-key a solid brawler to take out the safe and heist if there's a wall nearby, and makes his super even more important to actively drop and pick up again to get maximum value since his reload speed with the gloves on is so slow. But that's not all there is with this super. If you have this first star power equipped, then when you pick up your gloves, you'll heal 20% of your missing HP, which adds even more value to throwing out the super and picking it back up regularly. In fact, this star power is what single-handedly makes Sam playable at all, and I feel like at this point should just get the Chester treatment and become a part of his base kit. On the other hand, his other star power is also really good for cases where you want to try playing a brawler without a star power equipped at all, because putting the star power on is completely useless and is the equivalent of just not having one. Whatever you do though, make sure you don't ever lose control of your gloves. Okay, the first thing you'll need to practice when you're playing Sam is making sure you maintain glove control at all times, since Sam's entire existence revolves around throwing out and picking up his gloves again. For whatever godforsaken reason, it takes 10 baby punches or 5 ammo to recharge your gloves if they're thrown out in the middle of nowhere. Not only that, but the super itself only cycles itself if you hit 3 enemies with it in one throw. So if you just throw your gloves somewhere and can't pick them back up, it's basically GG's, try again next life. Gloveless Sam is the equivalent of playing Edgar with no super and an even worse basic attack. For his gadgets, the second one isn't terrible, but there's just no reason to ever use it because the first one completely outclasses the second one. Both gadgets prevent the affected enemy from moving or shooting with the glove on the floor, but with the first one, the effect lasts a longer duration and you can choose when to activate it. Plus you can use it to pull in enemies for free kills, whereas with the second one, once you use it, you're basically committed to using it with that super. Because Sam doesn't have a high mobility super like other assassins, he unfortunately has to do the walk of shame like Rosa and Jackie, and has to eat some hits or trade HP to dive on targets. This also means that he'll usually always be at low HP by the time he gets up close and personal with his targets, so damage gear is pretty good on Sam compared to the more passive brawlers where you might not activate it as often. The other gear slot, I've seen people use gadget gear for the pull utility or health gear to heal up to full faster. I personally go with health because his star power only heals a lot if he's missing a lot of HP, so it's not that good for like topping him off, and some people also use the shield, but like since his star power heals him more if he's at lower HP, I feel like it's not as important on Sam anyways. All this taken into account, Sam is a pretty versatile tank assassin that, if done right, has a really high movement speed, consistent self-healing, and decent burst damage and consistent DPS for heist. His gadget even has a pull that can be used to stop or score goals, pick up kills, or just prevent the enemy from shooting to let him close the gap, right? So is Sam OP confirmed? Well, no. Since his whole kit revolves around picking up his gloves again, if there's absolutely no walls, he's pretty much fucked. On more open maps, his long-range super actually kind of works against him because it makes it harder to pick his gloves back up if he's thrown them down really far away. Not only that, but since he doesn't have any actual mobility options, it's harder for him to chase down enemies, so he's more susceptible to knockbacks, slows, stuns, and just general high damage. In metas where brawlers with this in their kit are the strongest, Sam suffers quite a bit. Wait, what were the strongest brawlers in this meta again? That being said, you can try to play around some tank counters if there's enough walls using his gadget, healing, and decent burst damage, but too many walls just opens up Sam to getting butt-fucked by throwers instead, so you have to be careful with that. Also, if the enemy team has a Rico, then as a Sam you might as well just start riding your will, because Rico benefits a lot from the same walls that Sam relies on to cycle his super, and Sam has no way to really avoid getting ripped apart by a hallway full of Rico bullets if he wants to try and close the gap. But since Sam's kit, if you use effectively, is so inherently versatile, he does end up being pretty much usable in most maps and on all game modes, as long as there's not too many tank counters on the field, and some walls for him to work around. But since good players are able to make him work, the balancing team has yet to give him any buffs for like a long ass time, even though Sam has pretty much been getting worse every season. To play Sam at this point, you really have to know what you're doing, or at least have good fundamentals with positioning and movement, but even if you practice Sam and master him, he's still only just barely playable. If I could make my plea to the balancing team, I think Sam really does need a few changes that would make him actually usable without ruining what makes him fun. Managing his gloves and hitting those punch combos are really satisfying, and those should stay, but what is not satisfying is when you throw your gloves down and can't pick them back up unless you're literally sitting right on top of them, farting on them because the pickup range is a little finicky, right? Please buff the pickup radius so his gameplay feels smoother. Okay, I don't know how to say this, it's like you throw them down, you walk by them, and sometimes at that range you pick them up, sometimes at that range you don't, and it feels like it's dependent on like a server tick rate or something. It is just weird. If making him pick up these gloves more consistently is the only thing that's changed about him for the next decade, I'm honestly okay with that. But if I'm being an extra good boy this year, for Christmas, I'd probably also ask that his healing star power, as mentioned before, becomes a part of his base kit so he actually gets something like a choice for his builds. For his star powers, I'm sure the dev team can think of anything that's better than I can, but the second star power should be reworked at the very least because the charge radius is way too small and the charge speed is also way too slow for this to ever be usable in any scenario ever. If anything, being able to recharge your super after it's thrown out should just be a gadget. There's precedent with this too, with RT, Edgar, and Buzz having gadgets that do a similar thing. This way, even if you accidentally throw out your gloves, you don't have to kill yourself to be allowed back in the game again. And also, there's a weird bug thing where if you throw out your gloves and recharge it, but use it before it lands, your super is just completely wasted. Either let it recall while in the air or just prevent players from using it until it's landed. Why is this even a thing? Now, all that being said, this video is coming out before Sam gets his hypercharge, which does open an interesting question about how they're going to implement hypercharges for brawlers that insta get their super like Sam and Stu. Honestly, they could just make it so his super doesn't charge his hypercharge at all, and instead only his punches charge it, or they could make it so that the hypercharge does barely anything. So you can spam it out like 5 times a game for a small stat boost and annoy every player that plays with sound on. But no matter what happens, please just implement some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier, Supercell. If you're gonna give Sam a hypercharge, please, I'm begging you. If you do this, 1,000 years of good luck for all of you. Type yes to affirm. And finally, before we wrap up this section and jump into some games, is he worth picking up right now? Is he strong in the meta? I'd say that Sam is a pretty high skill cap brawler with a high skill floor, meaning that he takes a lot more practice to pick up and play at a decent level, but he can get a lot better if you master him. That being said, even if you master him though, he's only just okay in the meta right now. He's nothing too special, but at least he's fun and he can be played everywhere if you really want to. So yeah. Now with all that being said, let's jump into a few games so I can kind of show you the general playstyle of Sam, so you can get a better sense of understanding his positioning, movement, how to play him good. Let's jump into it. Alright guys, so on the account right now, currently Masters and Ranked. You'll notice that I'm not exactly 9,000 Ela because I was playtesting this earlier, and I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. You know, not the greatest win rate in the in the Masters on Sam. This is gonna be not good. Like, yeah, let's get into it, see how we do. Okay, we're on last stop. It's a pretty open map, but there's a lot of bushes, so actually I think Sam will do pretty good here, and because it's so open, a lot of people tend to go more range brawlers, which don't have the most, like, you know, stopping power for tank counters. Our last pick player wants to take the Mo, but let's be honest, he's last pick and he's never getting the Mo, so I don't even think I want to let him take it. But, and yeah, and like Mo is just obviously such a strong Sam counter, I don't even think... Oh, fuck. Okay, they banned it too. Maybe I should have banned like Surge or something. That's one of the things too that you do want to do when you're playing a brawler that, you know, like if you're one-tricking a brawler like this, you do want to try and ban its hardest counters. So like, you probably should ban like, I mean, but the issue is there's 5 brawlers right now in the meta that are like so fucking good against Sam. Even Daryl that does like really good into Sam, kind of, so it's a little hard to like ban them all. And you realistically will never ban them all. But here, our enemy team goes Nani and Fang, which are actually not that good into Sam. So Sam is low-key a solid pick here. Or at the very least, it's like a neutral matchup, right? Gotta get my honorary burp for the video in here. Another thing too that I will say is I'm hungry. I haven't had food in about 7 hours, so you know, if I play poorly, you'll know why. I'm gonna blame my lack of food on this. It looks like... okay. Yeah, so just, I mean, I think we have a pretty good shot at winning this game, low-key. Oh, fuck off. Okay, I may have to eat my words and then some. I mean, I'm just gonna be a fucking super feeding machine. Normally I'd be the one eating lobster, but I think this time the lobster will be the one eating me. Not the best looks on that. But here you can see, guys, okay, and the lobster's already gone on my lane, and he's already hit me, and he has the vision gear. You can tell because his little gear symbol was glowing when he hit someone. You can, I don't know if you can really see that in the video, but yeah, that's the thing. Okay, I whiffed my gloves. One thing you kind of don't want to do is pick up your gloves necessarily instantly, because it'll make it too obvious that you're going for them. So like you can try to like kind of fake them out by like... Oh, dude, I almost... So you can see there, I almost got the combo off to kill that Fang. If I got one baby punch off on the Fang, I actually would have killed him there. That's kind of like the threat to Sam, right? Like Fang just respawned. He was on full HP and he almost died instantly. There, he's gonna die again. Okay, lobster's lobster. But you know what? My teammates are doing a really good job holding it down, and they do outrange the lobster too, even though he just hit level 3. Okay, never mind, they are not holding it down. And, okay, let's tank for our baby Meg here and see if we can get out of here alive. I actually could have killed the lobster if I threw my gloves at him, but like I said, if you do that, then you lose control of your gloves, and then it's honestly just not worth it compared to just staying alive, keeping your gloves, and because I have 2 gems here that are important for countdown, I would rather not throw them out and then risk like walking across the map to like pick them up or something stupid. Here, because it's the end of the countdown, I'm just going to throw them out, get the kill on the lobster, and that is the round win. Pretty smooth so far. One thing you'll notice that I'm doing, by the way, is I think at the start of that first round, I kind of ran into their spawn and just like kind of mucked around, like, right, there's basically guaranteeing that I'm going to die, but even though I died, one really important thing about Sam's general playstyle is kind of cycling out your life for value. Now, in this case, the value is basically just getting a kill on the enemy, so my teammates don't have to deal with that threat on their side. Here I get a nice kill on the lobster. I'm just using my baby punches to finish out this fan because he doesn't have the damage to really take me out, actually. Yeah, you can kind of think of baby's punches on Sam as like, it's kind of comparable to Edgar, although it's a little shit, like a little more shit compared to Edgar. Obviously, I don't know why I left this bush, I'm just kind of yapping and I'm not really thinking. Oh my god, okay, nice. I managed to pick up my gloves there as the Fang supered me, so because I was so low on HP, I healed up a lot more than I would have otherwise, and then I was able to kill him there. But yeah, with Sam, like, there you can see, like, the fact that I'm getting kills for my life makes it so that the deaths aren't actually that bad. Relative. Fuck, I didn't have the ammo. I wasted my punches too early. Could have killed the lobster. That was not a very good death, relatively, just because I didn't cycle out my life for an enemy kill. Right? If you get the on Sam, it's really good to get like 1-for-1s or okay, that's really bad. Like trading out 1 kill for your life is honestly worth it. Or you know, sometimes with Sam, because you know you have so much HP, you're so fast, and you have healing, you can sometimes trade out 2 kills for your 1 death. Which is even more worth it. Oh no! Oh, okay. I threw out my gloves there, I auto-aimed. Not a good move, but it kind of worked out in the end. Yeah, it's like trading out, you know, 2 kills for 1 life, 1 kill for 2 life, or, like, what am I saying? You know, like a kill and maybe some gems for 1 life. Like, there's a lot of ways to, like, get value with Sam. And because he's just so hard to stop, like, if you can keep doing that over and over again, you're gonna end up pushing them back slowly over time and taking space, too, which is kind of an unseen value that can't really quantify with a tank brawler, but it still is value that you're getting for your team, right? Like, my team basically had mid control that whole game, and a part of it was that I was just going in over and over again, applying pressure, and they couldn't really push up because I was threatening killing them the whole time. So yeah, that's a nice first win. Let's jump into the next one. Alright, so we're on Knockout, a pretty passive game mode to be honest. But you know what? Not Sam's worst passive game mode map, I will be honest. I think he does worse on... you know, I don't actually have all the maps in my brain like a fucking nerd, but this is, it's not a bad map for Sam. Now, Sam's hardest counters here are probably going to be something like Surge. It's a scary pick to go against. Larry and Larry would also be kind of annoying to face, but throwers in general aren't like the worst for Sam to deal with, so okay, and they took Mo. You know what? We're gonna play it and see what happens. We're gonna see what happens. Throwers in general aren't the worst for Sam to play against, just because he has that, you know, he just is so fast and has like healing, and then with his gadget he can kind of like pull throwers in that are trying to run away, so it can work sometimes. Now I think our guy wants to try and synergize with me by going Kit, but I don't really have any expectations of winning this game, so I would rather just, yeah, he goes something he's confident in, and I guess he wants to take the tick. That's a pretty solid pick, I guess. So here's the deal, guys. What I really don't want to do is I don't want to feed that Mo his super, because Mo kind of struggles to get his super at longer range maps like this, especially into our comp if White Mamba decides to go a sniper or a long range brawler. The Mo's going to really struggle to get a super, which is going to make him easier to take out for our tick to like spam him out, and like especially if White Mamba goes a sniper. I don't know what he's going to go though. Oh my god. Okay, I guess we're just trolling this game. Please don't take Lou, dog. Okay, no, okay, well, he goes Gale. I mean, that's a pretty solid pick into the Daryl, I guess. It's just that thing is, like, I feel like Gale isn't as good of a pick into Mo because Gale doesn't have the longest range, so for him to attack the Mo, he has to get into the Mo's range, which means that he's probably going to lose that interaction because Mo just deals so much fucking damage. So our win condition here, just looking at their comp, obviously the Grom is our best lane, but this map is so passive that the Grom is most likely just going to camp with his teammates the whole game and not leave, and basically not give us an opportunity to dive him. Now I could see, here's the thing, I have actually not really tried the Sam vs Mo lane, so I could try just like limit like stress testing it and see if I can push up on him, like super him and gadget him, see if I can get like an early sneaky kill. Let's try it. No, did I not? Dude, the wall ate my gloves. Fuck, that would have been the fucking win. Dude, I think the Mo didn't do that much damage. I think I actually would have fucked him there. He wasted his ammo on me too. Okay, now we need to wait for him to waste a couple more shots, see if he can find another opportunity. That was so unlucky, dude. That's actually like truly an unlucky case. Okay, our tick just died too, which is not good. And I just got tapped by the Grom. He probably is using vision gear so he knows where I am. Okay, Mo has super now too. If he can... Oh, I just got hit again. Really bad. Okay, let's see if I can... Oh, I didn't pick up the gloves again. See, that's what... Let's try that again. This time we're gonna go this side. Hair on my screen. We're gonna go this side to see if we can maybe catch someone off guard. Although the Grom is on the other side. Oh, our tick is just inting. Okay, I mean, that's fine. Oh, I fucking whiffed my glove. Okay, actually, Mo wastes super, so it's fine. Pick up my gloves again. Never mind, I don't pick up shit. Gale gets a kill. I don't think he can win this, though, because obviously throw reverse a... Yeah, okay, well, so not a great first round. Let's see if we can come back in the second one. I definitely could have played better. I mean, I misplayed the very first round of that first round. The wall ate my glove. Okay, I don't know what to say. But the tick is honestly just dying over and over again, which isn't really the best either. So I don't really know what the strat is there. Let's see if we can catch this Mo. Oh, there we go, got him. Yeah, that's really nice utility with the gadget too. Although, to be honest, the Mo might have been dead regardless, because it was me and the tick both shooting at him. As long as Daryl doesn't have super here, tick won't die. So I'm gonna try to leave him alone there, see if we can chase down the Grom kill. Head goes for the Grom. Let's go. Kind of an interesting pinch way. Like, I pinched the Grom with my glove there, if you saw that. Kind of weird, because he knows that if he walks over the glove, I can just pull him back into it. So it kind of does work out to, like, pinch people like that. It's weird, but interesting little thing you can do there. So it looks like our Mo has wisened up and is refusing to walk down like a dumbass again. But this time the Grom is actually over there instead, which might be worth trying to pick... Oh, fuck. Mo's in the mid, spamming shots. Shrapnel hits me. Just like in Nom. That does blow up. I think I'm just gonna chill with my... Oh no. No, tick, no. No, no, no. Oh, fuck off. Oh, and we're all fucked here. That is cooked. Oh my god, wait. Mo, winnable. No, it's not winnable. Daryl is super. Fuck. Okay, I guess I should have hung out with my tick more, I guess, because he just got totally caught up by the Mo and died. But this time there's no grass there, so I can't... If I can't really hang out with him anymore, because then they're all gonna know that I'm there, which is not really ideal either. Let's see if we can, I don't know, look for some opportunity. Like, I'm kind of just right now fishing for, like, the Grom goes AFK. Looks like the Grom is in the top right there, maybe, from what the Daryl is shooting. Nope, he's right there. Okay, that means the Grom is actually by himself, too. Okay, Tick actually gets caught by the Tick head, which is really nice. Okay, I think I can actually chase this Daryl down. Nope. But he actually can't outrun me anyways, because I am playing Sam, so it doesn't even really matter. And yeah, that's the nice kill. That'll pad out our KD stats. Very important to not get kudos at the end of the game. And once you're in Masters, kudos are the only thing that matters pretty much, so can't lose too much aura. And that way we can also blame the game on someone else if we lose. Really important Masters tips, guys, just for anyone out there who's trying to push. I think we're going to hang out with our tick again, just because this tick seems to get caught out a lot. And it's not really that great, especially when we're trying to win the game. And he's basically our only range brawler. What Daryl's probably going to do is either just like chill and wait for his super to come up and then dive the tick, who just keeps going out of position, or camp by the Grom in case, you know, one of us, like me, goes to try and dive on the Grom. So at this point, it's kind of just a poke fest. We're just waiting for the gas to close in to try to make something happen, pressure build up. I wonder if we should actually rotate over on that Mo to try and catch him out. Looks like Daryl has super actually, so we should just chill with this tick and try to prevent anything bad from happening. I hope Grom doesn't have super, because that could be a big surprise factor that could fuck us over. Looks like Tick is just scanning. I think Daryl's about to come in soon. I can feel it. The hairs on my balls are tingling. Yep, there he is. It's like my spidey senses, except muskier and stinkier. Okay, and there he is. Let's just try and body block for the tick. He still dies, but oh fuck, it's so Joker. How did my Gale die? Okay, let's see if we. Oh, I tried to like stun the Mo there to prevent him from attacking, but it wasn't enough. Still went down. Mo had super. I mean, it was a tough game to win, anyways. I don't know how our guy died. Let's see if I can catch this Mo out though. If he walks in again, I'm gonna pull him. Okay, don't shoot me, bro. I'm sneaky. I'm ranking a sneak play, bro. Shut up. Okay, I think the Mo is not quite stupid enough. SMH. Can't believe Mo was not banned. I wonder if I can actually bait this Daryl into rolling in on me. Because I think Sam doesn't necessarily lose the 1v1 in the Daryl role. If you can outplay him, which isn't guaranteed, obviously. I mean, obviously if you outplay someone, you can win. But okay, that's a dude. Grom is fucked. He has super now. It's GG's, I think. Just throw my gloves out here. Hate the Daryl roll. Can you super for me, please? No, Gale. Aw. It's fine. I think actually we can still win this, maybe. Alright, so I guess that's a good example of what not to do with Sam. I kind of just went for a play and it didn't work out, but the tick got less kills than I did, so, you know, who really threw? I basically, what I tried to do there was, like, throw my gloves out to go for the Grom. Didn't really work out, though. Let's try one more game and see if we can turn it around. Alright, we're on Belle's Rock. For those who don't know, Sam and Belle are canonically married. And so I'm sure Sam would have a lot of experience to touching and polishing Belle's Rock. Hopefully we can turn that experience into a #1 victory royale. I think we're gonna probably ban... To be honest, I kind of want to just ban Rico because... Oh no, did we ban Rico already? Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Okay, let's ban Larry. Just because Larry is kind of annoying to face as an aggro brawler because his twin just always comes in with his little shotgun pellet and is like, no, you stay away from my twin brother. And then they make out in front of you and you're like, wait, isn't that incest? And they're like, yes, but it's morally reasonable because we are twin brothers. So there's no risk of, you know, any genetic baby coming out that is fucked or anything. It's just gross. And then you say, what the fuck? So we take Belle. Oh my god, it'll be like so cute. Belle and Sam on Belle's Rock. This will be like our wedding vows if we win, and then it'll be like our divorce papers if we lose. Now, the fact that they even took a BB is already immediately questionable. Like, I'm thinking, okay, this game is not serious and they're trolling, clearly. But that's great because I'm trolling too. Okay, they took BB Kit. That does throw a kind of a wrench in my earlier throwing claim. Okay, BB Kit Byron. So this might be a 3-stack and they might be throwing for content or doing some kind of strategy guide. I don't hate our chances of winning this just because I think Sam does generally do pretty decent into BB. And then the kid jumps on her, you know, it's still just a BB, right? With a bomb on her back this time. And hopefully my teammates can help us just shred her. I should also do pretty decent in Byron too, because Byron just doesn't have the burst damage to take me out, especially if I'm running it down. The nice thing is that because... Oh fuck, I'm fucked here. Dude, guys, I'm actually cooked. There was no nice thing. Why did I do that? Oh my god. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna try this again. This is not okay. So normally against kit comps, what you do want to do is try to like run it down quickly before the kit gets a super, but first round I kind of threw my gloves out in the middle of nowhere and then fucked up the whole team. Okay, Buzz just goes in and holy shit. Dude, this Buzz just like totally fucked him up. Wow. I mean, I think I'm not gonna get a lick of damage this game, guys. I think I'm actually gonna get like Hypercharger Buzz coming in hot. Let's just run in here. Take out the kid at least. Take out the Byron. Alright. So we've gotten 2 kills actually, so we're not gonna go 0 for 2 at least. So here's something that's in the BB 1v1 because she kind of relies on her first hit to like knock you up. If you can hit a glove on a wall and then gadget her like through the corner, kind of like I did there, you can interrupt her like swinging around the corner to hit you and knocking you back, which can kind of help you like run and beat her up because she doesn't actually do that much damage up close, right? So yeah. And also that BB is in Mythic. Okay. So here, again, Kit doesn't have super, so we do have the advantage for the first, like, 30 seconds at least. I'm actually not going to try to feed this Byron too much supercharge, though. Looks like we don't really have the... Okay, nice. We do pinch out the BB before the Kit gets her super, as planned. Here we're just going to take out the Kit, and yeah. Defending my wife. Get off of her! Don't you see you're hurting her? Stop it! Stop hurting her! Alright, so here, I don't know, I think the kid wasted his super 2 on the Belle, which is very strange. Oh, I whiffed my gloves. Okay, I'm gonna run, actually. That's not good. Okay, so this is what happens when you waste your gloves. You basically get put in a lose-lose situation where you basically are fucked and have no hope of lose. Oh my god, dude, this BB is so bad. The BB is actually so bad. What the fuck? Alright. So what happened there was, as I was walking backwards, because when you walk backwards, because every melee attack in this game is a projectile, as you walk backwards, as the projectile is thrown out, they kind of walk into it, which kind of functionally extends your range a little. So if you're ever walking backwards and shooting at someone, your range is somewhat increased, right? So there, I was able to hit the BB 10 times with my punches to recall my gloves and just straight up kill her too with the help of Bell's Mark. Crazy. I don't even know what happened there, but a W is a W. So yeah, hopefully you learned something useful from this. Sam is in the Vindet meta right now is not really that great. Yeah, I mean, he's still usable everywhere though. I mean, I think so far in the games I've played, my win rate is about 50% in Masters, but theoretically, below Masters it would be higher than that, and so then I would maybe climb. I'm not sure, but yeah. Go him at your own risk. Hope he gets buffed. If you made it this far in the video, I love the way your shirt looks on you today. It looks gorgeous. If you're not wearing a shirt, then why are you naked? Take care, y'all. I love you. Bye. Mwah.